So for context, we're about to do yoga with Akudo, my little cousin, Chindum's little sister. She is world-renowned self-care yoga master. She's been ducking me for the longest time. I've been trying to get face masks. I've been trying to get yoga sessions. She's finally back, so we had to get it done.
I got into yoga a little bit. Like, I was introduced really briefly in high school through my friend's Nintendo Wii. And the Wii Fit, and I think she let me borrow it or something, and I'm like playing with it, and it's like doing these yoga poses with the remote, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I remember checking out some books that I sort of like skimmed past, and I think someone on my soccer team also started doing like Bikram yoga at the time, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And then it was kind of like back burner, and then when I got into college, I was in a new city, overwhelmed with classes, also just being like, who am I? Like, all of these things happening at once. And in Chicago, there's a lot of yoga studios that offer these deals like, sign up now for a free week and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that could be a really like cool thing to do. And it was really for like a physical activity more than anything, just a way for me to get active. And once I started actually attending yoga, I was like, at first I was a little scared because I was like, I'm not flexible, so like, can I do this? But once I started going and just being able to see myself progress through something, in the midst of like what felt like a chaotic life, being able to be like, oh, this first time I went to yoga, I couldn't touch my toes, but I felt really like good afterwards, or like I sweat and I was like challenged, and it was like all of these things were arising for me. But then it was like coming back the next day or the next day and being like, oh my God, can I touch my toes now? Am I touching my toes? And so being able to see like these periods of growth happen that weren't particularly as visible in the other areas of my life got me really interested in developing a more like disciplined yoga routine. Today we'll be doing a beginner vinyasa flow. I know vinyasa is used often when talking about different yoga practices, and a lot of times we're not actually talking about what vinyasa means. So vinyasa loosely translates into to place something in a special way. And so for this beginner class, I want to invite you all to be really intentional and focused on your breath and your awareness to your body as we're moving through this space. We're not just trying to, move from one thing to one thing and bow, bow, bow. We want to think about how our body is moving and how we're feeling in these positions.
So when it comes to yoga, obviously you mentioned like unique times. How has yoga, from your standpoint, doing it, practicing it, and teaching it, how has that helped? This has been a crazy year. Like, how does yoga help with that?
Yeah, I think yoga, I know that oftentimes we kind of look at it as like, I'm going to do yoga and I'm going to be relaxed, or I'm going to do mindful meditation and I'm going to be cured of all anxiety that happens. But I think really for me, what is so important about these practices is not so much that I'm cured or I've escaped anything. It's actually that I now have the tools to deal with what is uncomfortable. Yeah. To what life is wild right now, right? And I don't do yoga to escape at all. I actually do it so I'm back to being present. I'm not carried into my, worryful, anxiety-driven brain about what's the worst thing that can happen. I'm just like, oh, I've been uncomfortable. I've experienced discomfort. What can I do to maintain? What can I do to stay strong, to stay present to the life that's happening to me right now?
That's a bar right there. I like that a lot. So obviously, you're an African American yoga instructor. Talk about that, because a lot of people's like, black people don't do yoga. You're weird. You don't do yoga. We're not supposed to do yoga. We're not supposed to focus on self-care. So talk about your experience getting into it. And I don't know if it's because social media is making it more available, but I feel like a lot more African Americans are getting into yoga.
Yeah, I think Black people need to care for themselves the most. The most is the fact, it's the fact of the matter that we are truly bombarded by trauma so regularly and live in a very anti-Black world. And so when we think about how to sustain ourselves, taking care of ourselves is the first step, right? Sometimes we're thinking like, oh, I need to have everything before I can take care of myself. But if you don't have yourself, what are you doing?
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, I can make all this money or I can reverse whatever the case, but if I've never taken care of myself, what am I going to be when I get there? Yeah. So taking care of ourselves is preparation for everything that we're owed, right? Yeah. We can't postpone our care, and we shouldn't postpone our care for things that aren't as important as our health or our presence. And I think there's so many actual like Black traditions around care that we just may be disconnected from. I think that Black people are from just like naturally careful people and joyful people, and I think we just need to tap into those roots. And
so talk about that. Like what are some steps that we could take? When it comes to taking care of ourselves, because it's, as you say, it's like natural for us. We just need to re-tap into it.
I think it's just finding care in almost like the most mundane moments. I think again sometimes we think that even doing a yoga class has to be this whole thing, but honestly, if you wake up in the morning and stretch your arms up overhead, breathe, exhale, you know what I mean? That's just a little bit, like taking these little steps. Maybe it's like eating your favorite meal, maybe it's home cooking that meal.
Okay.
Maybe it's inviting, calling a friend to ask, how are you really doing today, right? Not like how are you doing? I'm good. Like, how are you really doing?
Chill.
Everything's chill. It's like, how are you really doing today? It's interrogating how we're doing and investigating what's actually happening with us. Because I think when we have that self-awareness to figure out what's actually happening to us, then we can really plan for what we need to do.
No, I love that. No, it really makes a lot of makes a lot of sense. And for me, yoga is something that I incorporated later into my career. I wish I would have started it right off the bat. So changing gears a little bit, talk about it from like an athlete perspective. You have two brothers, Chimdum and Chino, that actively play soccer. How is it beneficial for athletes?
Yeah, I think it's beneficial for athletes because you get to know your body in such almost like a minute way that I don't think happens sometimes when you're focusing on a broad goal like getting stronger or I want to be the fastest, or I want to do this, but we come back to that care moment of like, how am I going to protect my body so I can do these things, right? Like, oh, I want to be this type of soccer player, I want to be this type of athlete, basketball player, and so much of it is like grind, and we're literally grinding down our joints and our muscles, and so yoga can help with mobility, flexibility, and building our bodies up so that it can sustain the things that we want to do, which so often I think is neglected. As a former athlete myself,
my bad.
Ex-soccer player. I think that I think during like stretching in soccer, I was like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Like
facts.
Not knowing this like big picture.
No, that's facts. And I wish, like you said, my bad. I forgot you played soccer.
No, it's okay. I mean, please don't. Let's keep it forgotten.
You got some highlights. You got the highlights.
I have no highlights, but
yeah, you spoke about the importance of like from a holistic perspective. Everyone's like grind, but like you said, when you grind, you wear and tear down your body. So yoga for me at least is a way to relax, tranquilo, calm it, restore exactly. But for the folks that may want to tap in, learn more about what you do, you don't just do yoga, you do self-care, you do face mask. I'm still trying to get my face mask. I'm still salty about that. I've said it like 8 times.
One day, when the pandemic is over, face mask for everybody.
Where can people find you? Where can people tap in with you?
You can really find me on my Instagram at Akudo Amazing, AKUDO AMAZING.
One word, no underscore, nothing?
No, one word, no underscore. Got it early. You know what I'm saying? Beat out all the other Akudos. And for just an additional resource for any Black women out there who are watching this who want to be more involved in like self-care, wholeness, wellness, check out this platform called Black Girl in Om, BlackGirlInom, Black Girl in Om, and that's a really dope resource for just everything Black women of color trying to move and get onto a journey of wholeness.
Do that again? Hey, okay, respect.
Yeah.
Thanks again for hosting us. I appreciate it. We're definitely gonna have to do it again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was awesome.
No, most definitely.